It feels like people really underestimate how important video game remakes are to the industry, as remakes can often bring new life to a series and make the old be new once more. Now of course, there will always be remakes that achieve the exact opposite. Instead of bringing new life to a game or series, they just end up hurting the brand, with your Secret of Mana's or Bowser Inside Stories remakes for example. However, when done correctly, not only do they improve the original product as a whole, but they help evolve the series and bring new audiences into it. No matter how much time passes, I feel like the golden standard of remakes, and the perfect example for this exact analogy will be the 2004 Metroid Zero Mission, a complete overhaul of the original Metroid.
During this time period, it was perfectly clear that Metroid 1 had been updated and improved into better games with Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion. However, now that they had improved the Metroid format, it was the best time to remake Metroid 1 and give it the proper quality and treatment that it deserved.
I don't think it is far-fetched to say that Metroid 1 quickly became outdated with level design that felt repetitive and caused people to get disoriented and lost, enemies that were very hard to deal with and gave a lot of punishment, and just weird level design. It was perfectly clear, even at that time, that Metroid had become a time capsule to 1986. However, you could still tell that the basics for a Metroid game were still there, and just like the glue that made it all stick together. I would love to take a look at the 2D Metroid games and share my opinions of them to prepare for the upcoming Metroid Dread. And of course, what better way to start than with Metroid Zero Mission. Man, that opening cutscene immediately gets you ready for what is about to come, briefly introducing you to Samus and what her goal is. Now, just a bit of backstory. Samus and her family were attacked by the space pirates as she was a little kid, with both her dad and her mom making for some nice dinner in Ridley's menu. She was then raised with the show's civilization, trained by them, and having all the equipment that she has, made by them. This would explain why there are multiple Shoso statues that try to help Samus throughout her journeys, and why there are many obstacles that only Samus could get by. After becoming a bounty hunter sometime later, one day she received a mission from the Galactic Federation. Actually, I don't know if it was actually them, but whatever, in which she needs to exterminate all Metroids in Planet 7. This being her first mission, her Zero Mission. The opening is short and to the point. The entire story seemingly has no fat, and its only interest is to tell you only what you need to know. Metroids and space pirates are bad, and you have to stop them. After telling us this information, the game starts and allows us to explore. Now, this room right here, the opening room, immediately tells us that in order to get far in Sevens, you need to start using your head and think outside the box. Since most games will have you going right to progress, Metroid does something completely different and has you go the exact opposite. To put it simply, Metroid is about locks that you find littered throughout the map, and keys that open some of them, but still leave other locks ingrained in your memory and on your map for you to look into every time you get a new power-up. This will lead to you paying attention to your surroundings and trying to explore as much as you can in the hopes of finding that key, which of course isn't always going to happen, but you'll still find yourself rewarded with a smaller upgrade that'll make you eventually stronger. The game features multiple of the upgrades that Samus will find herself using in later games, like for example, the missiles, super bombs, different suits like the barrier suit, ice and wave beams, bombs, the screw attack. Most of Samus' arsenal is here on the counter for, and after you beat the main part of the game, you gain access to even more power-ups throughout the epilogue of Zero Mission. However, even though you can use keys to open the doors multiple times, the answer can be with lockpicks. Sequence breaking is, well, breaking the intended order in which you acquire items throughout the campaign. One of the simplest ones, which occurs early into the game, there's this door that you're supposed to enter using the long beam to break through the surface and then to the door. That's right, that's how you're supposed to do it. However, if you're a real man, you will notice that they left a couple of open blocks like on top of the door, which you could easily break and get through the door, meaning that you could get early access to the missiles. Plus, if you play your cards correctly and manage to defeat the boss before it escapes away like a little coward, then you could potentially get an access to the charge pit before you're attended to. And that's cool. While you're supposed to get the ice beam, the high jump, then the barrier suit, go to Kraid, destroy that guy, get the speed booster, and then go back to Ridley. You can ignore half of what I said. You can just go directly to Ridley after getting the ice beam. You don't need no high jump, no barrier suit. Great, who the hell is that? Navigate your way carefully and get the super missiles early. The fight with Rayleigh is going to be a lot harder though, so there's that. What this leads to is to almost complete player control and agency in what they do and how they do it, or more simply, giving the player the illusion of liberty, something which clearly the game does, and it does it very well.
It is that exact feeling of liberty that the game developers give you that make you think, well, what can I do over here? If I go get this, if I do this, can I get this early? And I absolutely love that, because that just means that the game developers were aware of it. We know, guys, you aren't stupid. And that way, they give them the tools that they need to get to the sections early, so it's up to the player on whether they want to attempt it or not.
And that exact mindset is what allows Zero Mission's design to shine through. Since the developers knew that Samus could potentially do these things, they designed the game with basically two mindsets, the casual and the experience. If anything, this kind of reminds me of Kirby and Smash Bros., since they both have a similar, easy to learn how to master mentalities. The wall jump, the bomb jump, these techniques, they are never required, the game will never teach to them, and they don't plan to teach you them. But those are things that you have to figure out on your own, and once you do, the semi-linear game can become your own mini playground. And that is really fun, cool, and good double design. The game also exceeds in most things storytelling related. There are cutscenes and stuff that tell you what's happening, but for the most part, all storytelling in Sebas is left to the environment. The environments are alive, they have creatures living in them, they are doing their own things, the colors are vibrant and help drive the point home that this is an actual place that has life, and this place could theoretically exist. A single picture can tell a dozen words. I feel like that saying perfectly encapsulates environmental storytelling in the Metroid series. While I feel like this aspect of the game has been bested by other Metroid games in the future, it doesn't take away from the fact that Zero Mission does this and it does it perfectly. You'll especially notice how it builds its world after playing Super Metroid. The whole game is designed to encourage the player to explore the world and needs to get some things right, especially the map. Zero Mission's map has multiple pathways allowing one area to connect with another, meaning the player will not waste too much time in one area just to get to another area, since one area you could only access through another area. The world is concise and gets to the point. Traveling is not an issue since every path is clear and easy to go through. The game has no walls or cryptic to navigate through. The only thing that you could argue is cryptic is the item placement being hidden on walls. But for the most part, the map itself tells you if you're on an area containing an item. In some rooms, you can tell there is something hidden, because why would you go to a room that is completely just sealed off in the middle of nowhere? Think about this, you're in the corner of the world. Why would there not be something in there? There has to be something in here. Look at that, you found something, good job. Another one of the best aspects of the game though is the way that it does power progression. I feel like the most important way of showing progression in Metroidvanias, and like your efforts actually mattered, is to make the character more powerful now than it was at the beginning of the game. Enemies that took multiple hits and can now just die in one. Parts of the map that were once hard are now easy, and upgrades inaccessible are now in your possession. This doesn't make the game perfect though, as it does drag a bit with some segments in which you need to backtrack to get where you need to go. And while we are at it, I feel like this is one of the parts that truly hinder Zero Mission, just because it was a remake of the original Metroid, as in there were multiple parts where you needed to backtrack in order to get from one area of Brinstar in order to get to Norfair. That section that I mentioned before of getting Ice Beam, I don't know what else, just to get through Kraid. You know, the reason of why most people try to go to Ridley first is because you need to be constantly hippity-hopping around Norfair and Brinstar in order to get most of the upgrades needed to get through Kraid. And that is honestly kinda annoying. And here's one that may annoy completionists, as multiple items in the game you cannot access until you gain access to a power bomb and gravity suit, which are late game items. Like, and when I mean late game, I mean like power bombs are the last item that you gain before finding the actual final boss of the story. And that is really like, you just need the power bombs are like 1 minute away from the final boss, so they're like that close. Okay, here's a fun pop quiz. Would you rather take a long way out of this giant freaking ship that you were traveling to the entire final portion of the game, or would you rather take 10 steps on the final boss and get the game over with? When it comes to 100%, I feel like this game isn't as good as later games in the series since backtracking is a bit of an issue with the game. And while areas do connect with one another, sometimes the areas are like really, what's the right word? Big? They have long stretches between one another. I don't know, it feels like traveling the area sometimes can be a drag, at least in my opinion. Although, these are very minor issues, as if you're just a casual player, you shouldn't have any problem with this. Even with all of that complaining, I'm just making it sound way worse than it actually is. It's just a minor complaining. Metroid Zero Mission in general is just a really tight game in general that knows what it is doing and just runs with it as far as it can. Now, of course, the game couldn't be good if the character doesn't control well. So, how does the character control like? Now, one of the things with this game is that it was obviously limited by the lack of buttons that GBA had, so they had to do some compromises in order to make the game work. For example, to use missiles, you press R and B together, switching missiles, you use select, all of that yada yada yada, and honestly, I actually feel like they made this control scheme work really well. It feels really natural, and honestly, between you and me, I do think that she controls a bit better than Super Metroid in some ways. Our favorite bounty hunter is also snappy and agile, making the small amounts of platforming in the game feel really good, something which I actually never really liked about Super Metroid. It's surprising how well they managed to make the bounty hunter feel when designing the controls, and it makes fighting the space pirates just a whole treat in general. Sadly though, this game kinda lacks in difficulty through most of the game, with the bosses being especially easy. Crane and Ridley are only weaker and easier versions of what they were in Super Metroid, and Mother Brain is only hard because the idea of difficulty in this case was making a goddamn Toho boss. What is this? The game also has really good soundtrack. It's heroic, it's catchy, it just makes you feel like you're a bounty hunter just destroying everything on its path. If this song's remade in today's standards, that would be beautiful. Beautiful soundtrack. Overall, Metroid Zero Mission is a fantastic game that contains a lot of replayability, a big map to explore, multiple secrets, great music, great graphics, and overall, it is fun. And no matter what I say, the only thing that matters is that the game is fun. And this game delivers on that, being one of the best Metroid games, and easily being the most replayable Metroid game to this day.
That's all, folks.